things we also chatted about is you said you're a different man now than when you were younger. I mean, we all know that you've grown, some through your personal life has had some challenges. Talk about
not challenges, failures.
Yeah, so let's name it. I mean, in this room, there's folks who are divorced. You are in your third marriage now.
Yes, I've done it twice.
Talk a bit about that. What have you learned through all that? How's that mixed up with your faith? It's part of life.
Well, the thing. Well, I don't want to say I've learned anything because as soon as I say I've learned it, then I'll find out I didn't. But the thing I have a better sense of is humility. The thing that embarrasses me the most going back, and I was looking at myself at 20, which is what I was when I first got married, and how confident I was, not just about the world, but about myself, about who I was, what I expected out of life, what I wanted out of life. And I just charged ahead, just saying, I know it, it's all black and white, partly borrowed from my religious training. Mm-hmm. It's black and white, it's God's will, I know God's will, I'm going there. Mm-hmm. And looking back at it now, I understood so little about myself. And my shortcomings, my needs, my desires, things like that, I just had not done that. Now, one of the things I learned, and this was through therapy, not through a minister, even bless his heart, Tim Johnson, was there are no bad thoughts, there are only bad actions. And the way I was raised, there were bad thoughts. And so you shut down the thoughts. And for me at least, what came of that was then bad actions follow. Because it's still in there. When you say, I'm not going to think that, it's still in there somewhere. And it works its way out much later for me, much later in much more counterproductive ways. So that's, I think, one of the things I've learned. But as I say, I'm reluctant to say I learned it because watch, I'll do something that messes up.
There's, Patrick will know this, there's a German humorist and author from the last century, Wilhelm Busch, and he has a saying, Vater sein ist nicht schwer, Vater sein dagegen sehr, which essentially means...
I took one semester, but I don't know.
Yeah, which essentially means to be a father, to become a father is easy, to be a father is hard.
Oh, yeah.
To become a father is easy, to be a father is hard. You've had a tough relationship with your dad, and now you're a dad. Talk a bit about that.
Well, this is something I certainly haven't sorted out. At least I recognize I haven't sorted out. I think the father-son relationship is so banal, so obvious. It's so complicated. It's so freighted. And maybe that's part of the problem is we expect too much sometimes out of father-son relationships, going both ways, of your father and of your son. And so we set ourselves up for disappointment and failure. In my experience, now I'm reaching because I really haven't thought this through. In my experience, my father cast an amazingly big shadow on me. And some of what probably I didn't understand about myself, and that I still don't fully appreciate is how much I was reacting to my father. And trying, in some ways, to be my father, and at the same time to be exactly not my father. And that continues to this day, in shortcomings I can identify myself. They come from reacting off of my father. Being a father, again, I look back with embarrassment because I really didn't think much about parenting. I sort of just went into it because it's sort of what you do. And with time, because I've done it several times now, so I'm getting better, I think. I take it much more seriously and thoughtfully, but more important than that is I enjoy it. It was always sort of another responsibility for me. And I took the responsibility seriously. I've always taken responsibility seriously for my children, but it was a responsibility. It was something that I had to put on the to-do list and check off rather than realizing how much I could get out of it, which is different for me as I've gotten older.
Yeah. One thing that's on my mind that I've been thinking about, and I think maybe a lot of us in this room wrestle, and implied in what you've just said is, how do we stay ethically fresh? How do we make sure that our marriages do hold together? How do we make sure that we make the right call in the business so that we don't cut a corner? Where you are in your life now, have you developed any habits, patterns that help you make sure you're not the nexus? No one's bulletproof, but do you have patterns or habits that help you stay ethically fresh in the world?
Well, I mean, I'm 58 years old, and I have a 9-year-old son, and that'll help. I told David last night, we were watching, a couple nights ago, we were watching the evening
Tell
news,
this story.
and I didn't even think that he was paying attention to it, frankly. He was home from school, and it was like must have been Monday or Tuesday. It was 2 or 3 days after the Bin Laden story. And he looked at me and he said, "Dad, is he going or here?" That was it. Here or here? Because he's thought a lot about hell, and he wants to talk about hell the last year or so. He's been, what is this hell, and do robbers go to hell, and is there fire in hell, and things like that. So if you have a child like that who's around asking those sorts of questions, that'll keep you pretty fresh. Because a lot of those questions are fairly profound.
It's a heck of a question.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a straight up question.
Or should I say a hell of a question?
Yeah. So
but how did you answer it?
Well, what I said was that's not for us to decide. That personally, I believe that we get in trouble when people try to decide who goes to heaven and who goes to hell. That's God's job. We'll leave that up to God, and God will decide. So that's just not, we don't need to worry about that problem.
Yeah.
That's up to him. I'm not going to say.
But implying that is that you have some sense there is some, not a guy with pitchforks, but what is hell to you? To the extent that it exists conceptually.
He and I have talked about it because he got really, as you all have children, when they get to 7, 8, they start thinking about things like this. And it really weighs on them, and they have dreams. And it's very vivid. And I tried to explain to him, this was a year ago or so, when he really got into hell, so to speak. But he really was into the subject, and I said, look, nobody knows. Let me tell you what I think. I think that hell is separation from God. And if you love God and you want to be with God, then that's really uncomfortable. I do not believe there's fire there all the time and brimstone. I think that's just a way for people to try to describe that they're uncomfortable being separated from God. And so that's what I believe. I said, but you're going to have to decide for yourself. I mean, I can't tell you, but that's what I think it is. And all the other stuff is just trying to put some concrete detail around a more cosmic sort of issue.